This is WFYI News Now. It's October 31st, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, a mass text sent to an unknown number of Carmel residents is an example of political disinformation. An update on an effort to keep financially struggling rural hospitals from closing. And many cities across the U.S. have a housing affordability crisis. Some people are living in their cars, and for them, one of the most challenging things is finding a safe place to park.
Having to think about, should I park on this side of the road? Well, that's kind of dangerous. Or should I park over there? Well, last time I got, a ticket from a cop.
Those stories coming up. But first, a new trail project connecting Lafayette and West Lafayette over the Wabash River opened this week. The Indiana Department of Natural Resources announced that the project adds nearly a mile of new trail along the Lafayette side of Sagamore Parkway that can be used for walking or biking. There's also over half a mile of new trail on the West Lafayette side of Sagamore Parkway. The trails are connected through a protected bike lane on the Sagamore Parkway Bridge. The new trails are the first of several trail projects coming in the area. The end result would be an 8-mile looped section of the Wabash River Greenway that connects the two cities with each other, Purdue University, Prophetstown State Park, and 7 local parks. Officials used a $2.7 million grant from the state's Next Level Trails program to build the new trail. The program has given out $180 million in grant funding to 89 different trail projects across the state. A mass text sent last week to an unknown number of Carmel residents is an example of political disinformation. The text claimed that Carmel Clay School Board candidates John Shapiro and Christina Wheeler align with Republican gubernatorial candidate Mike Braun on education issues. From WFYI's education desk, Lee Gaines reports the text is fake, and at least one voter was nearly fooled.
Shannon Taylor is a Carmel Clay parent and a Democrat. She was shocked when she got a text that said if she stands with Braun, a conservative Republican, on education, then she should vote for Shapiro and Wheeler for school board.
I'm like, what? How could this be? And then I felt bamboozled.
Because Taylor had planned to vote for Shapiro and Wheeler, and she didn't think they aligned with conservative views on education.
It's incredibly alarming because if I had not been so reactive, I probably wouldn't have uncovered that it was a falsehood, right?
Shapiro and Wheeler both say the text did not come from their campaigns. Experts say disinformation sent via text message is becoming more common in political campaigns. I'm Lee Gaines.
You can read the full story online at WFYI.org. It's been nearly 2 years since the federal rural emergency hospital model was launched. The goal is to keep financially struggling rural hospitals from closing altogether. SideEffects Public Media's Natalie Krebs reports no Indiana hospitals have chosen to convert to the designation yet.
The Rural Emergency Hospital designation gives struggling hospitals increased financial support from the federal government. In exchange, they must give up pricey inpatient care and offer just outpatient services with an emergency room. Julia Harris is with the Bipartisan Policy Center think tank, which recently released a report on the model's progress. She says they recommended the feds revise the rules to allow hospitals to retain a small number of inpatient beds.
Like an elderly patient comes into the ER and needs just to be kept under observation overnight, maybe for a day or 2 or 3.
The Rural Emergency Hospital designation went into effect January of last year. So far, 32 hospitals in 14 states have converted to it. Natalie Krebs, SideEffects Public Media.
And for our final story today. A new program in Indianapolis offers people living in their cars a safe parking lot to stay. The program, launched by a group called Safe Park Indy, is part of a broader effort across the country to address a shortage of shelter space and affordable housing. SideEffects Public Media's Ben Thorpe reports in the first month since its launch, the program has already seen its waitlist grow 5-fold.
Ryan Warner's car is packed tight, and includes everything from a fire extinguisher to mini solar panels hooked to the roof of his car that help run fans to keep him cool. Warner has been living out of his car for the past 4 months and says those fans have been essential to keeping him cool over a summer that frequently hit 90 degrees.
Being stuck in a box like this, I know you could walk around and whatnot, but it's the weather is just absolutely brutal.
Warner works 2 jobs, but is still paying off a lease from his old apartment before he can look for a new place to live. In the meantime, he stays in parking lots and driveways of people who will let him crash. But it's not always easy.
Having to think about, should I park on this side of the road? Well, that's kind of dangerous. Or should I park over there? Well, last time I got, a ticket from a cop.
Relieving some of that stress for people living out of their cars is the goal behind Safe Park Indy, which opened in October. It's a parking lot on the northeast side of the city that will let people park overnight. The parking lot is too far for Warner, who worries about the cost of gas to and from his work, but it's helpful for others. Here's the founder, Elizabeth Friedland.
So people can park in this lot, know that they're authorized to be here, not have to sleep with one eye open, and they can also access some social services and amenities as well, such as indoor restroom facilities, a kitchen, Wi-Fi, and a place to charge their devices to try to make this tough time in their life a little bit easier.
According to Friedland, there are over 40 safe parking lots across the country, but most of those are clustered around the West Coast, with limited options in the Midwest. The parking lot for Safe Park Indy is next to a church, which is letting Safe Park use a few rooms. There, Friedland shows off a rack packed with different kinds of foods and boxes full of toiletries.
Since the weather's getting cold, we have hats, gloves, mittens, those kinds of things too.
The parking lot will let just 10 people stay for up to 2 months. The hope is that this would offer them time to get on their feet and make space for the next person on the wait list. When Safe Park Indy opened in October, Friedland said it had a wait list of roughly 50 people. Now she says
268.
268 people.
Yeah.
And it started at, I think, 50 the week that you were opening, is that right?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy. So yeah, we were at 268.
It's the first night staying at Safe Park Indy for Tyler Pittman. He sits at a table inside the indoor facilities at Safe Park Indy, making small talk with other guests. Pittman says he's been living in his car for 3 months. He struggled with substance abuse and says he is trying to focus on finding a job.
There is a level of organization and put-togetherness that really impresses me.
During his time living in his car, Pittman says he's realized just how bad the homeless situation in Indianapolis is.
It's working people, it's people, educated people with master's degrees, teachers, nurses. Like, this is a problem, and it's affecting areas of society that you don't typically associate with, typical homelessness.
Since 2019, Indianapolis has seen increases both in its overall homeless population and its unsheltered population, which can mean sleeping outside or in their car. City officials and some advocates have disagreed on how best to use city funding to reduce homelessness, but generally agree that more resources are needed. Friedland says she is looking for ways to expand, but is waiting for more secure funding.
So right now we're relying on individual donations, which are just not really predictable and can be harder to go after.
She says the hope is to open a new safe parking location in Indianapolis before the end of the year. I'm Ben Thorpe, Side Effects Public Media.
For those interested in applying to the Safe Park Indy, you can go to safeparkindy.org. This story comes from Side Effects Public Media, a health reporting collaboration of NPR member stations across the Midwest. It's based here at WFYI. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.